Today, I'm talking to Rebecca Minkoff, the founder of her namesake global fashion brand. Looking at her resume is pretty incredible. She's the best-selling author of Fearless, a book that unlocks creativity, courage, and success. I'll be asking her about the rules. She's also the host of her own Superwomen podcast. She's established the Female Founder Collective, which has been created to support and develop and elevate female-founded and owned businesses. And on top of all of that, she has 4 kids. I only have 2, and I barely manage. And she did a season of The Real Housewives of New York just to double down on her cultural cachet. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm just so excited to talk to you. I've got way too much to ask you.
Oh, ask me anything, and thank you for having me.
I thought I'd start kind of at the beginning. You have done so much. I was just wondering what in how you were brought up has kind of shaped your entrepreneurial spirit, your drive.
I think that it was truly how my mom and dad chose to raise all of us. They were not people that wanted to follow like society's norms. And so from the very beginning, there was definitely this entrepreneurial sort of, if you want it, how you going to earn it built in. With the exception of if I was going to make something, the fabric would be provided to me or the beads would be provided to me, but not the actual item itself, unless I earned it. So those are my 2 options, make it or earn it. And I think that teaches you at a very early age that that's how life is going to be, and that it prepared me for when I did eventually start my own company, that I wasn't shell-shocked or not sure what to do. I very much was used to that mentality. They also were like, you can go to college if you'd like to figure out how you're going to pay for it. We're not going to do that. And, college wasn't this thing that all my friends were like, oh my God, that's my only choice. So it really allowed me to sort of assess what I wanted. I tried college for about 6 weeks, decided it wasn't for me. And so I think that freedom to explore rather than being like, this is the channel you need to go through, prepared me for the eventuality of me having my own business.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good way to bring up kids. Do you do similar with your children? I'm assuming, you're super established, well off. How do you instill that kind of drive with kids?
So this is what I'll say. Growing up, we were, I would say, a lower middle class. So even if I wanted half the stuff and, they didn't necessarily even have the means to buy it. Whereas in my position, after 20 years in business and being very successful, I do have the means to say yes to 100% most of the time of the things they want. I choose not to. I say no all the time. Every time I say no, how are you going to earn it? What chores do you want to do? What jobs do you want to have? Do you want to go to Grandma Sue's house and see what she needs? Do you want to go around the neighborhood and ask? Like, I get the same shitty feeling in my gut as when I was told no, because you don't want that as a kid. You just want your parents to say yes. But I have to believe that it's doing something, and it's honestly the harder option. It's harder to make them make up the list of what I need. It's harder to think of ideas of how they can contribute. It would be very easy for me to say, oh, the cleaning lady's going to clean your room today and do all this stuff. But I force it in. And obviously they get perks. I spoke last night and someone's like, how do you keep this from being transactional with your kids? And I was like, it is transactional. I'm not making them work for their food. I'm not making them work for their vacations. There are perks to like my success, but the extra stuff they really have to earn.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's very, personally, it's something that I struggle with so much when I look at my kids. Like, how do I stop them being, expecting everything and, still having that drive? Yeah.
And it's not always perfect. It's not always like,
Yes,
I always.
it's always guilt.
Yes, for sure.
I thought it was super interesting. One of the things as I look at what you've accomplished, and actually obviously diving into like articles and listening to other podcasts, is you managed to find your kind of passion early. Can you talk about that? Like how did you find this passion to make and design And what's that feel like? Like, as someone that, still feels like I'm searching for a passion. Like, talk to me about your passion.
I think that, again, my mom saying, no, I'm not going to buy you the dress. You're going to learn how to sew it. I always didn't go into that sewing class excited. But I'll tell you that afterwards, when I put on the dress that looked like the one I saw, there was like a fire in me. And having been a very painfully thin, gangly teenager who couldn't fit into regular off the shelf clothes, being able to go to thrift stores or make my own things really gave me a lot of confidence, and that was a feeling I chased, was that feel-good feeling of I love having an idea in my head and then putting it to paper and then it becomes real. I think I was always toggling between that and being a dancer, but I started my love of dance far too late in my life for my body to be set up to truly succeed, and I think some crafts you have to start early. Um, and so I really went into, like, my teens with really being passionate about both and then having that hard conversation with myself. I'm just not good enough as a dancer. Not only am I not good enough, I have a very large chest and I'm very tall. And those 3 things are working against me in this career that is still very much, and rightfully so, built upon the body's endowment. And there are exceptions, clearly, but I said, "You know what? I also love design, and so let me pursue that as also a career that has a lot more longevity." Like, I don't wanna be a dancer and then at 30 open a dance studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
No.
yeah. So interesting. And then you managed, so you moved to New York super young, didn't you? It must have been a pretty exciting time turning up. You were 18 or?
I was 18. It was exciting and scary. I was like, "This is a big city. I don't know how to use the subway." The clothing that I thought was right for the wintertime is definitely like windbreaker material. It's not. But I think I had more excitement than I did fear at the time.
Yeah. So you started in New York, you were an intern. Talk to me about how you actually started your own brand so young. Like, what's the secret? How did you do it?
I really, as an intern and then as an employee of the company, focused on working hard, going over and above so that the CEO would notice the hard work I was putting in every day and was okay with me working on the side on my own line. And I think I hit a crossroads shortly after 9/11 where the t-shirt I had made for this actress before 9/11 appeared on TV on her after 9/11. And then when she said my name, it was like it went viral, when she had this shirt.
Yeah. So that
And
was Jenna Elfman
yep,
wearing the I Love New York t-shirt.
yep. So she wore the shirt, it was everywhere. And my boss, the CEO, could see my passion and my excitement for my own line in a way that she couldn't see for their line. And so she fired me, and I was not ready to be fired because it's not like I was making a lot of money selling this shirt. But she was like, "You have 2 choices. Either you can give us that passion or you can go do this, and I know the answer. Go do it." And so sort of the kick I needed to sort of branch out on my own. I was able to pay the bills not from the shirt, but from working as a stylist on TV commercials, which did pay well. And that was sort of paying for my rent and my food, and then everything else was gravy. There was not much else extra. And that sort of was the beginnings of the line and how I began to grow it.
I love that you almost, when I was looking at, I mean, obviously it was such a different time, pre-social media. Like, I'm sure when I talk to my teen, just be literally cannot fathom what it must have been like before, before social media. I mean, not quite before the internet, but very, very different. And when I look at the stuff that you've done, it almost looks like a kind of pre-version. So, like, you had a viral product, you used influencers, you kind of had an interesting playbook for how you grew your brand. Can you talk more about that? And, and the difference between then and how you do it now?
Yeah. I think that because, we did not have funding, we had, early on, our source was my brother's credit card and then his mortgage. every penny mattered, and so you had to get creative. And so all of our organic ideas is what the playbook is today. It was talking to our customer when that was shunned. It was meeting her. It was crowdsourcing her ideas. None of those had terms associated with it. It was just like, yes, I can talk to her. Wow, that's a great idea. Or I can ask her her opinion. Great idea. Um, I can travel, the United States and go meet her. Let's do it. And so I think for us, it became the eventual, being a direct to consumer brand and what's normal, but none of that was normal. There was no playbook for this. It was purely built out of, we don't have money like these other big brands, but we have speed, agility, the ability to be in touch with her. So like, what does that look like? And we were small enough that we could do crazy stuff, whether it's a scavenger hunt in New York City or, um, having real people in our fashion shows or live streaming our shows when that was even like, how do you have the technology to live stream? And so for us, it was just about testing and learning. Sometimes these things were great, sometimes they were terrible. I think building a brand today is very hard. And I think that some people think money's the answer. I still think that it's not. I think it's creativity. Obviously, money helps, but you could have a lot of money spent on terrible, uncreative ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were to launch your brand today, what would you do differently?
I think what we would do differently is we would focus on profitability above anything else. We were also part of this time period where profitability didn't matter, and once you got investors, it really didn't matter. They were just like, don't worry about that, just grow. Um, and I think it really does matter. It's, you need to be able to build and maintain your own house and not be on this endless quest for funds. And people think that raising money and taking that in is the answer. It just means you have new overlords and new tasks that you didn't have before, that might even take you and distract you. So build, your hero product, your MVP, survey the shit out of your consumer or your potential consumer, bring them along on the journey, and just assess your lifestyle. No, not everyone gets to be a billionaire or a millionaire. Like, what is the lifestyle you want that's realistic for you? And how do you build your business to serve that? And choose time over being a slave for some eventual maybe outcome as the fantasy.
Yeah. You waited quite long to take money, to take investment. Did you regret it?
No, I think I regretted a couple things about it. We waited 7 years. It was really hard to wait that long, but my brother, and rightfully so, was adamant, like, if we can just hold on, we'll sell a lot less for a lot more, which was the case. I think at the time, we had an offer shortly after we sold by another VC actually that had a vision of the future. They did believe in direct to consumer when that was not a term. They did believe in your own e-commerce when that was still new. They were like, let's do 30, 30, 30 of how your business should be set up. They offered a great amount of money, not only to the private equity partners, but us. And he said, I don't want you guys to worry about money. I just want you to be in the business and know that small things like your college kids' school is paid for, or, you can just focus. And we didn't take it because we had, wow, if we're getting this now, imagine what we could get later.
Oh God.
And
Yeah.
and the private equity also felt that way. And at one point I was like, that was the wrong decision, because
Yeah.
that guy was an innovator and was going to be ahead again of all these curves that are now normal.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have done differently.
Okay. Interesting. Um, as I mentioned, I do brand strategy. What do you have, like a positioning statement? I always imagine, I mean, you've kind of grown iteratively, you use your gut. Do you use stuff like strategy statements and stuff like that?
We have done various and many branding exercises. I think that we've sort of cemented, when you close your eyes for this brand, we are at the intersection of a woman who wants to be a little edgy, but still has a feminine side. There's always this rock and roll element, which is native to the brand and how, I dress and live my life. But there's a soft side too. And so that should be when you close your eyes. That's always the aesthetic we want to give you. I think we want our woman, and we know this from talking to her, to be optimistic. We want the clothing and the bags to make her more confident, more fearless. She's playful. So we've definitely gone into who this woman is, and we sort of stick by that. And I think that those brand pillars are timeless. And then we will slot into different trends, whether it's the micro bag or the tote or the hobo, but always looking at it through that lens.
Yeah. So the kind of brand North Star stays the same, whereas obviously in fashion, there's so many trends and so many things that can take you in different directions. That makes a lot of sense. And
I
it
think
sounds like you.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think the thing that we wrestle with is we are in a space and time, and that people don't want to listen to a brand. They want to hear from a person. How personal do we take it from me? And how much do we say we or brand? And so I think that's the hard part for us, of how much do you show on the brand channel about me personal? How open do I get or not? And that's where I think it gets tough.
Yeah, especially post sale and thinking about how closely you're tied to the brand moving forward. But obviously, in this day and age, I feel like it really helps to have someone authentic
Yes.
speaking out. A really tiny point, but I was talking to my daughter the other day, and I said the word rock and roll, and she literally had no idea what I was talking about. So how
Yeah.
do you think about who is your today's consumer? Do they think about rock and roll, or have you kind of aged with the consumer that you had?
We target two different sets.
Yeah.
We target our biggest customer growth sets is Gen Z, so the 18 to 25. I doubt she's listening to the Rolling Stones. Uh,
Let's hope she's heard of them.
She's might not even heard of them, but that doesn't, my hope is that she still listens to like Jay-Z and some of the like original rap icons. But I know she's listening to SZA and Kendrick Lamar and all kinds of other stuff. So when we say rock and roll, what we mean by that is there is a nonconformity, there is an edginess. How is that translated? It's through studs and zippers and embellishments on something. It's the leather jacket. So like when you break it down into what that product is, maybe she's never heard of the Rolling Stones, but she wants her studded bag because she's showing off her edge and her, like, it's that difference of I'm wearing a preppy bag and I have my Tory Burch or my Kate Spade, or what is Kate Spade? Living colorfully. So I've got my colored bag, but then we're like, no, we're the black girl in terms of color of leather and. So I think it's a zeitgeist more than I only listen to rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's so different these days in terms of expression and, you know, even words. Like, talking to a 12-year-old about what is preppy, and I'm like, that's not preppy. That's cowgirl or something. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, when my daughter was like, oh my God, this is so preppy, I was like, what does that even mean? And to them, it just means cool. And I'm like, my definition of preppy is not cool. That's like a boring person I don't want to be anywhere near.
What do you think makes a good brand?
I think a good brand listens to their consumers, brings them along on the journey. I think a good brand surprises and delights them and has certain values that doesn't stray. I think we saw a lot of brands in the last 5 years sort of give in too much to politics or public opinion, either way, left or right. I think just like put your stake in the ground and let the people know what you stand for, and you will attract your tribe.
Amazing. What are your favorite fashion brands or brands generally? Fashion
Um,
brands first, I think.
yeah, so I tend to gravitate towards I'd say only women-owned fashion brands because I think that women are just better designers for our bodies because they have periods and birth people and boobs that fluctuate in size. I just think they inherently go, "Oh, yes, this works." Sometimes I feel like male designers are like, I'm zipping myself into a corset and I have to conform to a mold. I've noticed. So I love Isabel Marant. I love Rachel Comey. Trying to think of who else. I love the Frankie Shop. I
Yeah,
think that those are a couple of the brands I love. On the jewelry side, I love Ivy Diamond Cole. She makes these necklaces and rings and of my all my kids, but it's not like the dainty like scripted stuff. It's more like the edgy. I'm trying to think of who else I really like. That's probably a good summary at the moment.
Good.
I
They
re I
they they feel like they're in the same brand world.
Not all of them. Rachel Comey is definitely on the more artsier, eclectic side of things. I think Isabel Marant is definitely she's probably more boho than we are as a brand, but definitely has that edgy side.
okay, interesting. Talking about women designers, and um, I was super. I'd heard of the Female Founder Collective, and didn't realize that that was yours. What inspired you to start it, and what kind of impact have you seen so far?
I was really lost trying to find real connections within the fashion industry of other women being willing to support other women. Fashion is notoriously like, get out of my way. There can only be one of us. Um, And so I was sort of peering outside of that in 2018 going, is anyone else like lonely? Like, yes, I have my brother who's my co-founder, but he's not a woman. And he's very buttoned up about what's going on business wise. Whereas I'm like, here's everything that's happening. Can someone help me? And so I started connecting with a lot of higher level founders. I had also started my podcast, Superwomen, then. And so I was so excited to meet all these other founders. And every time someone shared something with me, I was like, oh, you're going through this too. I thought you had it all figured out. So the goal was to create a community to drive a shoppable and recognizable seal that anyone could support a women-owned business. And also, my co-founder really felt strongly, Allison, about the idea of education for women taught by experts like yourself, to teach these women all the parts of business that they just didn't know when they signed up with a passion. And so our goal is we want to make women successful and wealthy and have a lot of money. And hopefully that will change things as they become more powerful in leadership positions and community positions for the better. The impact we've given out probably at this point over 300,000 in grants to different businesses. We have a membership of over 25,000 women, where every week, month, year, there are lots of incredible education opportunities, whether it's in person or not, for these women to really get the unsexy parts of business um, educated about it. We also have a paid private membership that's obviously way more in depth. And so the goal is like hopefully that number changes on women getting investments, women making more money,
Women on
um,
boards.
women
Yeah.
on boards, exactly. So that, today I don't get to sit here and say, because of our work, we've made 1 cent more. But I have to hope as we reach more women that it does change.
Yeah. From all this work, I mean, it's interesting thinking about what kind of challenges do you think women kind of face more than their male counterparts as they go into business?
You're going I think depending on what the business is, I think when you're pitching something, if it is in the female world and let's say you're trying to raise money. Sometimes these women are complaining that like the men didn't understand it. And they don't. If a man came to me and said, "I'm starting a gaming company for football," I wouldn't have the faintest clue if that were a good idea or not. So, you can't always say, "Oh, it was because I'm a woman." It's like, no, you're solving a problem for a subset. Like, they don't know what it's like to get a period.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes that strike is against us because 'cause you're pitching to majority of people that just don't have the use case that we have or the problems that we have. Um, and then I also think that if you wanna be a parent and you wanna be an involved parent, you're going to have a slower time of building your career. It's just how it is. And you either have to be okay with it or not. And that's really, really hard to find where you stand on that. And I was just on Instagram last night, and I think there's an author talking about like the powerful pause. So rather than reframing it as I took a step back in my career because I wanted to be focused in those early years on my kids, here's how it gets you power. Here's why it actually can help you. And I think if we can shift that narrative of I'm going to lose by having a baby into like, no, this is how it's going to make me more powerful, I think that could be a very impactful shift.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, like, for me, one of the best things about having kids is suddenly I almost didn't worry as much about work. Like, I felt like, time is precious. I'm going to do this faster. I'm not going to procrastinate as much. I also don't care as much. In a weird way, it was super helpful. How I also thought it was interesting what you said about men just don't necessarily know. So I'm working with a really interesting female founder of an incontinence product at the moment. Very sexy, but just an amazing product. She's literally just going through funding discussions at the moment. And she's super smart. She's never done this before. She's a doctor. She asked that each investor brings their wife to the pitch, which I thought was just genius. To your point, it's not that you're women, it's just that you maybe know your audience and understand how to best, communicate and tell your story impactfully.
I love that. And I love that. And I meet women, they're like, I can't believe I was in this pitch and he was like, let me ask my girlfriend. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I would certainly be going to my husband again, and back to this like NFL example. I'd be like, honey, is this a good idea? You play fantasy football. I don't. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. And I think it's brilliant that she brought the wives.
Yeah. Are there any other things where you just feel like women don't necessarily take into account things that will help them kind of progress as founders or as business people,
Yeah, I don't know. I can't recall a single time in my education where men got the money talk and we got the like, let's talk about sex and children. But I definitely know that when I'm with my friends and coworkers or whatever, the default is how cute is my kid? How many times a week are you having sex? Right? But we're never like, what was your plan? Did you do life insurance? Did you do a Roth? Did you invest in stocks? Are you doing Bitcoin? How much did you ask for that project? And it's uncomfortable to even ask your friends and colleagues those things. But men are doing it all day long, and there isn't this like creepiness about it. That's what they're talking about on the golf course. So wherever that happens to us and we lose track, I think we need to get more aggressive with how we communicate and bring those subjects up with each other and learn from each other. I talk about it as the added chapter in my book, like talk about money instead of sex.
Yeah. Yeah. Both to friends and partners.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your book. Congratulations. I am in awe of anyone that manages to write a book. So this is Fearless and Rules to Unlock Creativity and Success. I know there are 20, I think there are 21.
Now there's 22.
22, okay. We can't go through all of them. Give me, I actually have skimmed through. I'm a very slow reader, so I skim. But give me the cliff notes. What is going to make me more fearless? As it's definitely one of my ambitions.
So the goal of the book is that you don't read it and then be like, I'm fearless. It's more like I'm scared and here I go. Here are the 22 things I'm going to grasp onto when I'm making these scary choices. One of the chapters is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. It's reframing failure. You're going to fail all the time. It's going to happen. You cannot prevent it. And you need to get comfortable with it, and you need to view it as a learning opportunity. So instead of like, I failed, I'm a loser, can't believe what these people think of me, it's like, wow, what did I learn from this and how am I going to come back stronger? And I think the more you do that, it does become a muscle. and you get out of the negative shame spiral of it all, and just, again, figure out how you're going to bounce back. There's a chapter about communication, whether it's to your partner, husband, wife, about really setting expectations, understanding expectations and needs and wants from both sides. Not everyone can read your mind. There was a big divide between my brother and I when I had my first kid, because he, again, talking about male, female, different needs and wants, he was happy to keep working till 9 every night, and I wasn't. I was like, I'm going home to my baby. And we definitely had to sit down and say, this is how this has changed now that I have a baby, and this is what I need and want, and what do you need and want. And so it's like, it's not like you get to have the conversation once inside of the office or with your spouse. You are doing it at least quarterly, you know?
Yeah. I think
Um,
a lot of the rules to me are so interesting because they're kind of like, yeah, they're so practical, you
yeah.
know, and very kind of growth mindset. I don't know if you ever read the Carol Dweck book, but like managing to, it just reminds me of the fact that everyone has the ability to make their own path forward. Like, you know, if you take a failure as a failure of the self, that's what you've done to yourself versus turning it, as you said, into an opportunity. Like, I feel like a lot of, you know, your drive and way of thinking about the world is about what can you do to impact the world. But do you think that's true? I mean, what's the secret to your success? Like, yeah, what are your superpowers?
I think there's not one secret. I wish there was. I think that at the end of the day, you could distill this down to fearless decision making. Again, you're filled with fear, but you do it anyways. I think it's getting back up. In one of the chapters, I talk about the fact that sometimes I feel like we're just still around because I didn't give up, not because someone helped us or continued. We just said, okay, this sucks and we're going to go out of business, but let's keep trying. And I think sometimes that in itself can be a reason why someone succeeds.
Interesting. Do you have mentors? I always worry that I haven't, I definitely had people that have been helpful to me, but I always worry I kind of missed out on mentors. I don't know. Or maybe it's just in real life, you don't label them as mentors. I don't know. Some people do though. Tell me, do you have mentors?
I don't have like a labeled mentor. I think that's another word, like balance, that a woman's like, oh, I'm going to have a mentor and she's going to unlock the secrets of the universe and then I'll be successful. I think that I have women, many different women who I turn to for different, very specific advice. Again, it's a chapter in my book. Don't ask for help, ask for what you need. So I'll go to a very specific person for a very specific request. Um, and I think that I just try and surround myself with tons and tons of successful, awesome women, and I'm watching what they're doing. And I think there's a difference of, you can watch someone achieve things you want and be jealous or be inspired. And so I watch the people that normally other people would label as jealousy, and I'm like, cool, how do I do that? And so I'm learning by watching and seeing how they're doing something in a way that allows me to figure it out. Like, what does my path look like? Because it's not going to be the same as theirs.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of why I started this. You know, professional jealousy is a little, you know, tongue in cheek, but it's that like, you know, it's my, you know, attempt to talk to people that, yeah, I can be jealous of, or I can be inspired by and help, you know, be better. You've obviously done a podcast for actually years. You're actually one of the OGs in the space, almost, I think. Any advice for me as I try and get through my my early podcasts? What should I be doing
Yes.
better?
I
Give
would
me some
say that,
constructive criticism.
well, no, your questions are great. And it's nice you're asking me questions I haven't answered 100 times with my canned answers at this point. Um, I think that for more at this point, you know, the way that I've seen podcasts grow is by you going on a million other podcasts and talking about the podcast. Um, and then really getting your listeners to share And is there an incentive for them sharing?
What do you give me an example of that on yours?
Like if they write a review
Okay.
or leave a comment, the platform I'm on with Spotify, you can interact with fans and talk to them and get them excited. And
Got it.
we've done giveaways before, like download the podcast, send me the thing, and I'll send you a bag. So what value can they get outside of it? How do you make them like a closer,
Yeah.
tight knit community?
I'm going to have
Um,
trouble giving away brand strategies might not be as effective as your
It
bags, but
it might be though, because you're gonna attract,
branded,
right?
yeah.
You're gonna attract a lot of women who can't afford your services, who are listening to your podcast, that now you're like,
Okay.
yeah, I'll do a 1 hour Zoom with my top 100, fans.
Oh my God, thank you. That actually, I said it so flippantly, but you know what? You're right.
Oh my God, it'd be so valuable. Like we needed brand work early on and we couldn't afford it. Like I'd love to be able to sit down with you and be like, what am I doing wrong with my brand?
Oh
Because
my God,
believe me,
such a good idea. All right. Well,
um,
and in return, I will chat with you about anything I can do to be helpful. Please do
okay.
remind me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love that. I mean, and then the only other thing is you can do cross promotions with like-minded podcasts. You'll read an ad for them, they'll read an ad for you for your podcast.
Okay.
So it's a lot of administrative work, but it does help.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you. I feel like that was a quick, just personal,
Yeah.
help
Well,
session.
yeah. And then, sorry, lastly, I think, and I've spoken to a number of people, and I think there's some that don't want to admit it, you do have to pay for ads, and or there is a service that actually only gets paid if the person they target downloads the podcast, and I can send that to you after. Big podcasts use it. They're lying if they don't, because once Apple did the update, your phone no longer automatically downloads the next person that you follow. You have to manually go do it. So this is the way to sort of help ensure that your listenership grows.
All right. That sounds good. I also have to release them first. So that'll be my first
Yes.
step.
Yes.
All right. Tell me about your decision to go on the Real Housewives of New York. What about it felt right for you? Yeah, I'd just love to. I mean, it's definitely, as someone looking in, it's definitely fearless. Like, it looks pretty scary to me. I don't know. So talk to me about it.
Oh, it was a fearless decision. I think if I go back to the time period where I was in talks with production, the story, the pitch was, this is a reboot. We have 8 self-made women, or we want to have 8 self-made women showing their lives. This season, we want it to be fun and funny with a little bit of drama. And I very much full warnings. I was like, I'm not going to talk I'm not going to talk bad about a woman. I'm not going to throw another woman under the bus. I'm not going to gossip about her. If
No
that's
fighting.
I'm not going to fight with another woman. I'm going to communicate with them in a mature way. I said, and if that's not what you need, like, I get it. Like, I don't need to do this because that's not who I am. And they're like, we don't need that. We have that box checked. And I was like, great. I think I felt by like the first scene I was in, maybe the second, that I was now on a ride I could not get off of. And how am I going to navigate this? Um, and I think at that moment, it was more about, all right, I've signed up to do this. It's not what I ever anticipated being a part of. How do I get out alive? It was really,
No. Yeah. And,
and it was hard.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, what was the most exciting and the most,
My
I
rose
don't
and
know.
my thorn.
Yeah, totally.
I think that the rose was outside of, we've always been first to do many things and to be in touch with our consumer. And so to be able to be, I went into this with a thought, like if I can be in front of my consumer and entertain her and delight her and she can see a different side of me, not that I anticipated they would distill me down to that side of me, but in my rose-colored glasses, I was like, if she can see, intimate workings of my company, my family life, like the stuff I do for women, how cool would that be? She'll get to know me better and I'll reinforce that connection that she had originally. I also thought, being that it's our 20th anniversary, was going to be like a great time to be on TV in women's homes, you know, celebrating that publicly. I would say the thorn is it became the exact opposite. You know, I was edited down to a mute person who says random things, and that is not who I was and what I shared, and that's the magic of cinematography and editing. And everything that I stood for and everything that I wanted to share was actually cut out. Like, what's crazy is it's called reality TV, and I watch and listen to people in the comments, and they're like, she didn't talk, she didn't share any of her life. I'm like, wasn't up to me. It was all there. I gave it all. It was all removed. Even my castmate, a former castmate, said, I wish you would have shared more. I was like, did you know I did this and this and this and this? She's like, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, it was all gone. It was all shared. It was all cut out. So I can't control that. And that was the thorn. I was like, what a waste of time. What a waste of taking a successful woman who could have been an example and a light for other women, and then doing what we don't need. We don't need more women looking weak and quiet. And thank you for doing that to me, because I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah, there's got to be something. I mean, I just can't even imagine. I mean, obviously, you have a level of fame before that, but then having that kind of view of yourself go, you know, amplified into another level of culture. I mean, I can't imagine how that felt.
It felt like a huge betrayal, if I'm being honest. And it was mortifying to have my peers or people that I haven't met go, oh, that's her. And I couldn't control that. And I was just so bummed. I was like, I'm so sad that that's what you think I am. But follow me here to get the who I am for real, or listen to my podcast, or, you know, go to my Instagram. And that's very much not who I am. So don't believe one slice of reality, you know,
Would you do
or
it again?
one slice of TV. Would I do it again? I would definitely not do that show again. No. I would do other types of shows, and I have an idea for one, but I would be an executive producer on it, so I
Yeah,
could make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
that somebody else with their own agenda wasn't painting me into this character.
Yeah. I feel like female Shark Tank kind of thing.
It'd be great. It'd be great. I guess
Um,
the only thing that made me feel not even better, but like, oh, it wasn't just me, is I've gotten to know some of the other housewives on other franchises, the very successful ones, pretty well. And the single longest running housewife was like very betrayed this season, I guess. I don't watch hers. I don't watch the franchise. They made her into a demon or whatever. And I was like, wow, even like a veteran who's given them everything and is their most famous
yeah,
star, they're going to treat this way. Like, no
yeah.
one's safe.
It's all about the views.
Yep.
All right. So what tools or practices do you personally use to kind of, you know, keep sane, grow? I feel like you seem to be someone that probably has some good tools.
Yeah, I think that for me, I don't want to be trite, but exercise is an incredible boost for my mental health and for my body. I'm very committed to it. I'm so committed. I launched a program with my trainer, if anyone's interested, of the exact program I did the last year to really take back control of a
Yeah.
postpartum week.
What is it?
It's basically a program in partnership with Rift Fitness, and you can look at the program if you go to my link in bio on at Becky Minkoff and download the program. We upset a couple people because you have to have access to a gym to do the program. So we're going to launch an at-home version, and I apologize in advance. But I think for me, that's like a commitment to myself every day, or at least I try it to be every day, of an hour where I'm just like zoning in, and trying to just challenge myself there. And I feel like the rest of the day you get the endorphins, the adrenaline, that boost. I'm a big fan of taking long walks without a phone and like looking around, especially when I'm either creatively blocked or stressed, and just allowing that space and time to just sort of solve problems, or let myself sort of ramble with creative ideas. Um, and I would say that I have personal things that I do for my own mental well-being, but you can probably Google me and find out all about them.
That sounds good. What about, you know, culture is vast. You're in you seem very tapped into culture. Any surprising, people that you follow or sources of inspiration? What do you do to keep up with it all?
Oh man, I don't think I'm keeping up with it all at the moment. Um, who do I follow that's like I do listen to a number of podcasts. Not that I'm a religious follower of Joe Rogan, but I do think that I pick and choose some of the people he has on. I think the Skinny Confidential, while it to me is centered around pop culture, interviews a lot of incredible people that you wouldn't think of. And I'm happy they're bringing people like this naturopathic dentist to the forefront to talk about teeth health and the longevity and cancer prevention from that angle. I'd say those are my two favorite. And then I feel like I just always have these tentacles out for like hearing and seeing, like I could see the beginning of sports and fashion happening. Can I do it as good as Kim Kardashian? No, I cannot. But I'm doing my little corner of it, with our recent collaboration with Erin Andrews and our continued collaboration with her. And so like as I get these things and, I don't know, I'm kind of putting out these what's the word? These tentacles for things and then they come in. And I don't know how to explain that, but I'm sure in the way that you do your work, like you have a sense of something and and then you tap into it.
All right, last almost 10 minutes. Last few questions. So these are going to be quick fire.
Okay.
Don't think about it too much. We're going to go and we'll do as many as we can in a short amount of time. So tell me one of your guilty pleasures.
I love chocolate. I definitely over index on sugar late at night, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I definitely, when the kids are asleep, I'm like, I go to the freezer and I eat way too much sugar. Um, I would say another guilty pleasure is I don't even know that's guilty. I love tanning in the real sun without sunscreen, so that's
So
why I had
good.
these. But
I know. So I feel like I'm a Nutella late at night, kind of out of the jar. I
mm,
get that and sun. I
good.
can definitely, yeah, agree with. Best career advice, worst career advice you've ever had.
I think the worst career advice, and we didn't take it, but it was very scary, was, you know, stay in your lane and don't think outside the box and don't talk to your customer and don't meet her. You are above her. You should stay in your ivory tower. This was 2006-7 era. And that was coming from editors and magazines and buyers at incredible department stores. And so to not take their advice seemed like the stupidest thing in the world, but thank God we didn't. Um, Recently, I interviewed a woman named Kristen Olzelski from Nomatica Wines, and she said, only take advice from women whose lives you want.
Ah, interesting.
And it reframed who I'm listening to. Because if I don't want your life, then why take your advice?
Yeah, interesting. What's a success look like for you?
Ironically, I was talking about this earlier today. At different phases of your life, success is going to look very different. So in the beginning, for me, success was I didn't have to call Chase Bank to see if I had enough money to eat out. Then it was we can split the check and I'm not cringing because I only had a salad. Um, then it was, oh my gosh, my brother doesn't have to live with us anymore and we can afford rent on our own. You go, or I can now pay the nanny without freaking out about I have nothing left after that. I think to me, success now is truly built around time and mental capacity to be in the present moment. It's to be with my kids and not be worried or stressed out about work, or to be with them on the weekends and not need my phone. And being able to enjoy those moments without this distraction of if I don't do this now, then blah won't happen, and then this doesn't.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
as you're building a brand, it takes a lot of time and energy. And if you're a mom, it's that constant push pull of, so success to me now is just that I don't have to have that push pull.
Yeah.
Something you wish you'd learned earlier in your career or in life?
I think that, we have these 1, 3, and 5 year plans, but if you're building a brand, it's your 20-year plans. And so, how would you set up your life differently if you knew you were going to be doing this for 20 years? Would you probably take that vacation and maybe go offline for a week? You probably would. Or would you not check email at night and on the weekends? Probably. Because if you're going to do this for 20 years, did that really get you there faster? That Yeah.
Favorite housewife, least favorite housewife?
On my cast or in general?
Oh, general.
Oh, God, there's so many favorites. Okay. Brittany from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was the most do you watch it?
I've watched some of them. I don't know if I've watched Salt Lake City.
Okay. Well, do yourself a favor and watch the
Okay,
season
all right.
because it's incredible. Brittany was also a friend of, and she was like, oh, maybe I should have been more like Brittany because she put herself in the most obnoxious way at the center of every conversation. And if she wasn't getting attention, she literally would do these toasts. Like she'd be like, everyone, I have an announcement. My daughter is speaking to me. And I was like, maybe I should have been like her. She was so extra. And it was so cringy to watch, but then you just are like, this woman is crazy and I kind of love it.
Living it.
Just like, I'm going to take everything I can from this experience and I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I wish I could have been unabashedly that insane sometimes. So she's like the best and the worst. I think that Bozema is on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She's a real friend of mine from before that. And I think she had the experience I thought I was going to have where she played it perfectly. Everyone loves her. She didn't really get into the drama, but stayed above it all and classy and then didn't and got a great edit. And I'm like, oh, that's what I thought was going to happen to me. Like where?
All right, last question. Tell me about someone that you're professionally jealous of. Yeah.
Who? Okay. There is an incredible, she's a slash. She's a writer. She is a digital creator. She is a mother, Jenna Kutcher. She started out as a wedding photographer and now is an incredibly, she has a podcast, 1 million downloads an episode. Like, who wouldn't love that? And I sat down with her a couple years ago and she was like, yeah, I can retire now if I'd like to. And I've figured out life in the way that like optimizes motherhood, personal, business. This is my team and how it all works. And she broke it all down for me. And I was like, holy shit, you have figured this out.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you've got it pretty figured out. Thank you.
Still trying. Still failing.
I know, but that's okay, because that's the opportunity, as you said in your book. Fail, opportunity, keep going fearlessly. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this.